Hello, I'm Joe Dillette, owner of the Carving Shop, and this video is on carving tools and the care of carving tools. Up to this point, we've got videos on sharpening, and I hope you view those so you know how to sharpen them, because that's part of the care of carving tools. So let's talk about the tools themselves. There are several manufacturers out there. I've got different V-tools from the Swiss manufacturers, Stubai, Hirsch. Those are all good tools. There's also Two Cherry. So let's start making some sense out of these tools and what makes a good tool or not. So first of all, the Hirsch tool comes out of the same factory as the Two Cherry. It's the same tool, they just put different labels on it. And I believe, I'm not positive on this, but I think the Lamp brand maybe comes out of that same factory. The Lamp is an individual brand by Woodcarver Supply. There's a unique thing with the Lamp brand that they order sets, and when you order one set, another set, there's no duplicate of tools in there. So that's kind of a neat feature with the Lamp. But I consider these German tools, the Hirsch and the Two Cherry and the Lamp, to be the top quality tool. Also, the Stubai tool. Stubai is from Austria. That is a wonderful tool. That is my personal preference right now. I really love the design. It's a very high quality tool also. And the Swiss tool. That's the tools I started out with after my first Buck Brothers set, but the Swiss tools are a high quality chisel. That's from Swiss. Swiss is also referred to as file tools too. That's another name starting with a P. So there's other tools on the market. This is one made in the US. I love US made tools. Flex Cut. Now, Flex Cut is a little bit different insofar as it is made from a spring steel. So it's using spring steel. They're not taking old spring steel springs and making chisels out of it. So, but they're called Flex for that reason. They do flex. Many carvers prefer this tool here. Now they have some mallet tools. This is considered to be a mallet tool. Also a mallet tool you use by hand also. This is another V tool. So that's kind of a unique design. I love the fact that they're made in the USA. And then there is the Henry Taylor. I think Henry Taylor is English. It used to be. I think it still is. Those are the basic ones that I've been using. Now, the other ones out on the market, you're going to find a brand that's OCC, that's what it's called, tools, and that's the old Denny tools. Now, Denny makes knives. Denny makes, for years, made just wonderful knives. So did John Duncan. John Duncan is getting in, Dunkel rather. John Dunkel is getting in making chisels also, and I would imagine that their chisels, both of their knives, were very high quality. They made knives, and that's how they make their living, is off of making carving tools. So I would expect their quality to be top notch. Ashley Isles is also another brand of chisel out there. I hear it's a pretty good quality. I've never used any of them, but that's another brand out there. Buying tools, well, first of all, let's talk about the tools themselves before we talk about buying them. The handles, you want to get a nice hardwood handle. Their hornbeam is typically what some of the handles are made out of, very hard, and ash is another type of handle. And the thing you want to look for is ferrule. This has got ferrule. This is more called a sculpture's handle because it has a ferrule here, and also on the tool itself there's a ferrule. So that's a double ferrule. That's what they're talking about. This is the would be the Two Cherry and the Hirsch with the double ferrule. The same with the Stubai. The Stubai has a double ferrule. The ferrule on the handle is embedded right into the handle. There's a metal ring that goes in there, and also the Stubai tool has a ferrule that comes out. So that's why it's called a double ferrule. And the Swiss also has a ferrule, but it's a single ferrule just on the tool. There's no ferrule in the handle. It's good to have handles that are octagon or at least with a flat on it, because a tool like this would roll off and roll onto the floor. So if I was using this, I would probably make a flat on it so it would stop the rolling action. So I would just opposite the name brand and where the grain is, I would just produce a little bit of a flat that still feels good in the hand, but it'll stop the rolling of the tool off of the bench. So the steel in the tools are very high quality steel. They are better than if you were to go to the hardware store and buy a Stanley chisel, you can pick those up fairly cheap, but the steel in there is not as good as the steel in these carving tools. It's proprietary, this steel in it, but the steel typically is very fine grain. You can see that when you touch it against a grinding wheel. Hopefully, if you're going to test that out, don't do it on the edge. Do it down here and just touch it for just a little bit. You don't want to ruin your tool. But you will find that the very small sparks, very close together, and a lot of good pop on the end, and a very good color to it, indicating the hardness, the amount of carbon, and how close the grain is. If you were to take like a Stanley wood chisel and you touch that to the grinder, you will find that the sparks are further apart, and it might be called the same steel. It might be a 1080 steel, and this is a 1080 steel, which means the same carbon content, and then they're both hardened to a 62 Rockwell, but you touch them to the grinding wheel and you will find there's a big difference, perhaps in the grain, how close the grain is on it. The finer the grain steel, the better it will be, the longer it's going to keep its sharpness. So that is what you're paying for. When you're buying a chisel like this, you're paying in the $30, $40 area. But these chisels last for generations. So when you amortize that over the years and over your projects, it's fractions of pennies. But yes, if you're going to start off with good tools, otherwise they're not going to keep their sharpness. But they cost, but they will last. Now, they pay attention to the long grain. The long grain, they try to keep all the grain so it goes right down into the handle. That is part of the stiffness of the tool, and there's many other things that they do to make this a very good tool. Carving tools are very strong when they're used in the forward direction. You can take and pound on them with a mallet, and they will hold up very good. But they are not very strong when you're prying. So never pry with a tool. The tools are weak in a prying direction. If you're going down to the bottom of a hole and you're going to pry to get that last little chip out, don't do it. You're going to lose your cutting edge. So the tools are expensive for that reason, that very high grade steel. Once we have the tools, we spend a lot of money on them, we spend a lot of time getting them sharp, we want to be able to keep them sharp and keep them in good shape. There are several ways to take care of your tools. One way is a tool roll. So this is typically what carvers use, is a tool roll, and let me unroll it here. Now I keep a towel between, and I'll explain that in a minute. A tool roll, what it does is it keeps the tools from bumping into one another and dulling. So the fact that the handles are put into the pockets and the pockets are alternating as it goes down, when you close it up, these two handles wrap around the tool, and keeps the tool from touching any other tool. So that is the purpose of the tool roll. So the handle goes into the pocket and the blade sticks out. The other way that I've never seen it being used this way, but when you bend it in half, then all the tools are accessible. So let's say if you had it on a sawhorse, you dropped it over a sawhorse, all your tools are then accessible in the air. I've never seen anybody use that. To me it would seem a little dangerous because all the points are sticking up and they're all razors. So now the reason why I use a towel on this, let me put that back into the pocket there, is these are big carving tools, like the big fishtail chisel here, number 3 chisel. And that's a little bit too big for the handles of the tools to cover up and protect. So here, this is one of the lamp brand from Wood Carver Supply. Nice big V-tool. But so to make sure that the tools don't touch when I roll it up, I use this towel. And that's additional padding. Now when I roll it in there, I know that the tools are not going to touch together. That towel's got some history. We got that towel for our wedding present, and that was a little over 49 years ago. So it's not in the bathroom anymore, but I'm still using it. So, little sentimental thing with the towel. Okay, the way that I keep my tools, I don't use tool rolls very much. I made a tool holder. Let me show it to you. This fits right on my bench. It travels right on my holder on the bench. All the tools are in here. I have got, I think I've got 53 tools in here. I have the number written down someplace. No, I got 34 tools in this area right here. If you were to wrap up 34 tools in a tool roll, it would take up more space than this. The other thing that I like about it is I've got my tools organized. They all go back into the same place. So I've got all my V-tools in one section, the gouges in one section, number 3 gouges in another section. These are the veiners over here. And so I know where everything is and it all fits in its place. I can look at my tools in one glance and I can see if anything is missing. Now the important thing about this here is that every tool is sitting on the ferrule. It's not hitting against the bottom of the hole. So when the dirt and dust from the shop get down into the hole, the tool is not going down and hitting in that dirt or dust or sand, and that would dull the tool down. So to clean that, what I can do is I got screws in the bottom. These holes go all the way through. I have screws in the bottom that I take the screws out and I can clean the holes. The other thing I like about this tool holder is that it travels very nice. What I do is I just put the top over the top and like this here, and I clip it. I did put locks on there, but as you put that in your luggage, what they do is they cut the locks off. So you just put something on like that. Now, this thing can be bounced all around. Everything is in an individual hole, so it's not going to touch together. It stays sharp. Everything is still in place. Nothing fell out. So that is very nice. Now the other thing is at a show, I have no sharp points out. And as you know, kids and everything come up at the show. And this is on my bench in a holder on the side. So let's say parents of a young kid come up and they're talking to me here, and the kid is interested in my tools, and he comes around the other side. What I do is I just lay my arm over the top of the tools. down here, and I know he can't pull the tools out. And so then when I get done talking to the parents, then I can go and I can show him my tools. I know he's interested, so I can talk to him and say, these are very sharp, and I'll show him, and I'll show him what they're used for and that. But it's a way of keeping the kids away from my tools. When I leave the bench, I'm not there. I cover them up, and I can easily put them away into a drawer. And at the end of the day or the end of the show, it's very easy just to pack them up and take them with you. So I really like this holder. And this is the one that goes on my bench, and it's a holder that travels along my bench. It locks into place so it doesn't tip over. I have another one. That's this one. This is the one that when I'm working on a stage or I'm doing a large sculpture and I don't have a table, this one sits on the floor. It doesn't tip over very easy. It's the same way. It's organized so I know where everything is. This taper is kind of nice on here because I can just take and drop this right back over the top, and it always goes back on. So when I'm working, I pull a tool out and I drop that back on, and that keeps the kids out of there, so they aren't going to. Nobody's going to be grabbing my tools. And then when I want to switch tools, I just put the lid off, and I always know what tool is where. I put them back always in the same place. And so that is also travels with me. Can also be tipped in any direction. Has the screws on the bottom that I can take the bottom off and I can clean out the holes. Now I've got 19 tools on this one, and I think that's the number. I didn't write it down, but I think I keep 19 on this one. So that is really a nice way to keep the tools. I can look at a glance and I can see if anything is missing. Let's talk about the tools themselves and how the number system goes on the tools. The industry isn't standard. It's almost standard, but the numbers, the same curve, a number 3 of one manufacturer is not going to be the same as another number 3. But this is typically how they run. Picture it as being a circle. All right, and of different diameters. Okay, and then let's draw a line through it. Now, all of these here, chisels, let's say you got a chisel, let's erase part of it right off of the top. Now, those are all number 9s. A number 9 is 180 degrees. So that's a number 9. A number 3 would be about here. These would be number 3s. Number 3, and we're talking about the sweep of the tool, the radius, the sweep. So what you're seeing then is there's not a specific radius for a number 3. There's a specific angle in the curve. So I don't know what that would be. That might be maybe 20 degrees or 30 degrees of the circle. I don't know. But the higher the number goes, this would be like a 5 or a 6 here. So this would be like a number 6 that would go maybe from here to there, okay? And this would be like a number 3 from here. So you see that in the number 6 or the number 3, the wider that you get, the higher the radius is going to be. So a number 3 can be a small radius, a number 3 can be a big radius, and the same with the other number tools. So number 9. So that being said, what you can do is you don't need every number. If you need this type of radius, then maybe you've got a number 6 with that radius, and you got a number 3 with this radius. So look at how much of the angle that you're taking in. Okay, so that is what the how the number system works. Now, when you get above the number 9, number 1 is straight. Okay, that's a straight chisel, and number 2s normally aren't made except for the Swiss. The Swiss make a number 2, and there is just a slight curve on it, and then number 3s. Almost every manufacturer makes, but not one number 3 is not going to be identical to another manufacturer's number 3. Okay, now when you get higher than number 9, number 9 is 180 degrees of that radius. Then when you start getting up to like a number 11 is called a veiner, and a veiner goes to 180 degrees plus it has straight sides up. And then this would be like a number 11, okay, and in most manufacturers that's a number 11. Like a number 14 is a V-tool, and the V-tool is probably going to be a 60-degree angle. I drew it probably closer to a 45, but V-tools normally come in 60 degrees, in a 45, and also in 90 degrees. That is typically the angles that you will get. A 45 degree is about as tight as you want to get. They might even make one that is, one manufacturer that's even less, just more a sharper angle. But 45 starts getting a little bit more difficult to sharpen down into the inside there. So they all have radiuses, and different radiuses, they may vary. There's no standard numbering for how big the radiuses are on there. So that is the main tools that you will come across. The other one is a skew. A skew is a straight chisel, like a carpenter's chisel, but it's sharpened on an angle like that. Okay, and sometimes the skew is sharpened from one side, and most of the time the skew is sharpened from both sides. So what I'm saying about that is you're looking at the skew at this here side, and it's up like this, it's up like that, and down. So it's on both sides, it's sharpened. So you have a bevel here and a bevel here. Sometimes it's like a carpenter's chisel, just sharpened on one side. All the way, the different ways that you sharpen, and whether you're sharpening that skew on one side or the other, is your personal preference. There's no rules in this, and any way that you can make that tool work for you better, go and sharpen it that way. In the sharpening video, we talked about wing swept forward, wing swept back, and some of the other variations, not all the variations. You will invent ways of sharpening your own tools the way that you like to use for certain jobs that you do. So that is the basics when you order tools. Where to get the tools, I have one manufacturer that I really love. I got several. This is Woodcraft. The Woodcraft shop is in Bettendorf, Iowa. And Big Dog is the guy that owns the shop. He and his family work, and wife, Miss Carol, they're wonderful people. And pretty extensive catalog. He carries things in. His prices are quite good, and his service is excellent. Do not confuse this with the chain that's called Woodcrafters, okay? That's a different store. He has got one store. He travels to most of the carving shows around, and so people can buy directly from him at the show. He's got online. You can go to the woodcraftshop.com online. So he is one that I use extensively. He has many of the tools, many books, and videos and things to help out. A catalog is a real nice thing for learning. His number is 800-397-2278. And I also get from the Hardwood Connection in Sycamore, Illinois. He sells carving tools and other woodworking tools, but that's where I get most of my wood. He does most of my glue ups there, and that's the way I use the hardwood connection and sycamore. The other thing I want to talk about is safety. And when we talk about safety, we are talking about primarily using the knife. That's the one where people get cut the most. Let's pull out the knife and some of the safety items here. One of the videos we were sharpening this knife, and the important part about this knife is the locking mechanism. It will not close unless it's unlocked, and it takes a little pressure to unlock it down here. So if you've got a jackknife that does not have a locking mechanism, that is also a safety hazard because it can fold up. I remember when I was a kid carving, it folded up and right across my fingers, and it will cut you. And so don't use a knife that doesn't lock in place. Most of the carving knives you buy, this is a Murphy knife. This is a straight blade. It's a strong blade. I don't recommend X-Acto blades because X-Acto blades, they tend to flex, they'll break, and they go ding, 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 they fly around the room. I talked to one lady in Milwaukee, was on her third surgery to get the use of her hand back when the X-Acto blade broke, cut some nerves in her hand, so it could hit you in the eye, it could do a whole lot of things. So buy a knife that has a good strong blade with good steel, and a short blade is best. It's very difficult to control a long blade. Not only do you have to keep the whole thing sharp, but you've got this big long blade and you're trying to do delicate work. This is the short blade. I believe this is the 1 3/4 long. I'm not quite sure about that, but it's the short blade of the Murphy, and I really like it. When the Murphy comes, it's a straight blade, so the cutting edge is straight. What I like to do is I like to curve it back, so maybe if you can, maybe you can see it a little bit better, but I have a little curve on it. And the reason for that is I can raise it. In other words, I'm not stopped. Let's say if I want to carve something across this, and if the blade is straight, you have to keep the blade down. Now I can carve with the tip of the blade, and I can raise it where my handle is going to clear the carving. Now I can carve further in. That's why I generally shape my knives so it's got a curve going back, that I can carve above with the handle above the carving and still reach in further on the carving. So that's how I shape the knife. And I normally don't use a knife for carving. It's not considered to be a carving knife. It's considered to be a whittling knife. And so that is, I love to whittle. I love to use a knife, sit down and carve. But when trained carvers are in school, they don't learn how to use a knife very much. They might a little bit, but that's typically not your carving tool. It's a whittling tool. Sit and have fun. You can whittle some pretty neat stuff out. So this is a Kevlar glove, and the Kevlar glove this one's got rubber dots on that make it easier to hold the piece. It doesn't slip out of the piece. What the Kevlar does is it keeps the knife from cutting you like this, but now the threads are fairly far apart, if you stabbed in like this, the point will go through and it still will cut you. So if you're carving like this and you slip and you're going to go into your hand, the Kevlar, it might stop it a little bit, but not much. But a cut like this coming across, hitting here, it will prevent you from being cut. So this is not 100% foolproof, but it will add some safety to your carving. And you can get this from the woodcraft shop, some other places also. If you go to like Walmart, they've got Kevlar gloves, like in the fishing department for filleting fish, but a lot of those don't have the rubber dots. I like the rubber dots because it holds the carving pretty good in the hand. Now, when people carve, they're carving like this a lot, like they're peeling potatoes, and they hold it in this hand. So you wear the glove on the hand that you're going to hold the carving in. And then normally you don't have a glove on your knife hand because that hand doesn't get cut. It's the hand that you're holding the piece in. So if you're carving like this is the sharp edge, and you're bringing that sharp edge into your thumb. So the other thing that they do is they have a leather thumb that goes over a thumb guard. I don't know where mine is. I guess I do see it up on the shelf there. But this is also another product that you can get. It's this here rubberized tape. It's not regular tape. This is not sticky tape, but it's a gauze that has like a natural rubber embedded into it. So it sticks to itself, not to your skin. So you take and you make a thumb for it. Just wrap it around enough that it's going to, just like a Band-Aid thing. I also use this over Band-Aids if you get cut. And then you just kind of mush it down on there. You make sure you've got enough pad on your thumb when you bring that knife in there, it's not going to cut it. So that is the safety items that I recommend. So that will keep the cuts down to a minimum. And when you're working with chisels, always fasten that piece down and work with two hands on the chisel. Don't hold the piece in your hand and have the gouge like this here and go right into your hand. You'll talk to many carvers who did that and ran that chisel into their hand. Some went all the way through. So that is something to be careful of. And let's see, I'm looking at my sheet here, and there's another thing that's very important that we need to talk about, and that's with magnetism on the tools. This is a demagnetizer. The demagnetizer is an electric, there's a transformer in there, and it plugs in, you turn it on, it goes and then you can demagnetize your tools or magnetize. Depending on if you shut it off with the tool on there, then it becomes magnetized. If you put the tool on and take it off, then it's demagnetized. So all your tools should be demagnetized. So you'll find some carvers and some lathe operators, they have a magnetic strip and they put their tools on this magnetic strip to hold them. That's very good for holding them, but all the steel in those tools are hardened steel. So they retain that residual magnetism. You're making a magnet. When you put a magnet against another hard piece of steel that wasn't a magnet, you put them both together, now they're both magnets because you've aligned the dipoles on the other one that wasn't a magnet, and now it becomes magnetized. And your carving tools are hardened steel, and they will magnetize. So if you've got any magnetism in them, when I'm sharpening tools, especially for someone else, and I check mine frequently, I make sure they are not magnetized. The reason for that is the metal shavings that you have around your shop are going to stick to it. Let's take this one out. I said that the Swiss make a number 2 chisel. This is the number 2 Swiss chisel. You can see that there's just a slight bend on it. And I don't know any other manufacturers that make a number 2. But picture this thing as a magnet, that it's magnetized. And you're grinding it, or you're around the grinder, and when you take it away and you're going to look at it, all those metal shavings are stuck to it. And that's kind of how they look. And there are more of them at the corners, where your magnetic flux lines are denser. And because that's where the magnetism is the strongest, at the corners. And so this whole edge is a corner, your whole cutting edge. And that's where they like to collect. So if you've ever taken a magnet and trying to clean off the metal shavings off of it, you will find that you don't have much success in doing it, because you'll get some off, you'll wipe it like that, and you take some more, and it seems like you never get them all. There are always some left on there. And so you say, well, I don't care if they're magnetized. I'm just going to keep it away from metal shavings, you see. And what do you think happens when you're going on the strop? And you're stropping off with that 2 or half micron abrasive, you're removing metal particles. Those metal particles now are free to go wherever they want. And where do they want to go? They want to jump to a magnet. And they're going to stick on this here tool. And where are they going to stick? On that cutting edge. And they might be so small that you're not going to be able to see them on there. But when you start cutting, making a cut with that chisel, what's going to happen is that is still a hardened piece of steel, and it's stuck right on your cutting edge, on that very fine edge, and that, when you go into the wood to make the cut, that jams that piece of steel right into your cutting edge, and it'll dull it down. And so magnetism is a big no-no in your shop. So try to demagnetize everything. So how do you check for magnetism? You take 2 tools, you put it together like this, and they should not stick. If they're going to stick, you'll see them pulling like that. And you'll see like that, they'll pull away. But these here are not magnetized. So I check them. You can buy a cheap demagnetizer, and it's one little, most of the time they're green. They have 2 holes in it. One you can put in there to magnetize it, and the other one to put in to demagnetize it. They don't work real good. It's better than nothing. The one to demagnetize it will reduce the magnetism, but it never completely goes away using that. It's not electric. It's just there's a magnet in there, and somehow it just takes and does some demagnetizing. I don't know how it specifically does it. But what does the best job is this demagnetizer here. Now you can pick these up on eBay. I think when I went and bought this, it wasn't much over $15. That included shipping, and they use this in machine shops and all over where they need to demagnetize something. And if you want to make a magnet, you can use it too, but you want to keep all the magnets out of your shop, because every time, if this was a magnet and I touched it against other tools, everything it touches, it's creating magnets all along the line. And so anyway, I wanted to mention that in care of your tools, make sure that they are demagnetized. That wraps it up for the care of tools and explaining what the tools are. Thank you very much.